Well, shall we get going?
I guess.
Okay. Welcome to Talking Shop with the two most important people on this program. Matt and I, Tim, we're not sure where he is, and Ernie, I don't know, we haven't seen Ernie in months, so he'll show up sooner than later. But we have a text that comes, Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 to 20, right after the Beatitudes, beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. A lot of challenging things, I think, kind of, if you take it out of context, it makes it even harder. We'll do our best to get it back in context to help preaching on this text. So, all right then?
All right then.
All right then. We'll get after it.
Evil way, spit on my Lord in every way, yet I'm still welcome in the arms of the King.
You ready?
Sure.
Okay. Matthew 5, 13 to 20. Biggest thing I think before we even get into the text is that this does come right on the heels of the Beatitudes, right? So the setting is what? What's going on?
We're still the Sermon on the Mount, which means Jesus is still sitting with his disciples on top of a hill, surrounded by crowds, teaching his disciples about who they are, in essence, and what they should be doing.
Yeah. It's a good way to think of it as who they are.
Yeah.
To be his disciple, what does that mean? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Long sustained discourse in Matthew's gospel here.
The longest one we have.
Yeah, it goes for chapters. So the temptation, or I don't know if it's a temptation, but people mistakenly will pull this out of that greater context, right? And that'll drastically change, I think, how you read the text, and then obviously how you're going to preach the text, right?
Yeah, if you pull this out of it, and I think that's the challenge of it, is to read this and go, why does he make those transitions? Because you have to remember that he is doing this almost like a sermon. At least that's the way that Matthew gives it to us. And so, these are in his head, he's moving from one to the other intentionally.
Right.
And so, yeah, you have to bring in the greater context of the entire sermon and what his points are in order to get all of this in context. So,
yeah. So he moving into verse 13. Then he's finished the Beatitudes, what we talked about last week, and he speaks about what? What does he call them, or what are they, or ought they be, or I guess it's what they are.
What they are, yeah. He says it's an indicative. You are salt and light, two enduring things.
Okay.
As all of your commentaries will tell you, salt cannot lose its saltiness. It is salt.
Yeah.
It is nothing but salt. It will always be salt, and it will bring to whatever it has salt. Light in the same way. Light cannot be overcome by darkness. This was a gentleman, Dale Tackett, who did a video series for Focus on the Family quite a while ago, and he said, light will always overcome darkness. If you have light in a closet and you open the door and the room is dark, the room will become light. The closet will not become dark. No matter how big the darkness is, the light will always overcome it. And so you've got two enduring things here. Yeah. And this is how he describes his followers. So
yeah, you are the salt of the earth. People might unpack that a million ways, right? What does it mean to be salt of the earth? You have any favorite ways? It gives the earth its flavor.
Yeah, I have used it as a flavor enhancer.
Okay.
So it's not, you're actually not supposed to taste the salt. You're supposed to taste whatever it is better, right? So it's people who say, I see things more clearly now, or that's kind of salt.
Yeah.
I've also used it as a very valuable thing. Salary comes from the Latin salt. Yeah. It is what the Roman soldiers got their pay in because it was worth its weight in gold. So it's both precious in their day, as well as it flavors it enhances everything.
And really, however you might unpack that, I think going back to what you initially said, that this is an enduring thing is the point.
Right.
The salt of the earth. it's valuable. It's people treasure it, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It's it's not going to become, and that's kind of what he says, right? If salt loses, it's kind of a hard thing, right? Loses its saltiness. I guess we're skipping over the light part, but if the salt loses its saltiness, it's not good for anything. Well, no, that comes first, right? It's not good for anything except to be trampled beneath because it's not. It's an unthing. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Right. Salt without saltiness
is not salt.
It's not salt. Right. That's the point, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So then he moves in. You are the light of the cosmos. He says.
Yeah.
Right. Most translations, I think, have world.
Yeah.
But this is.
Phos of the cosmos.
Yeah, phos of the cosmos, right? This is everything, and the darkness, right, is not able to overcome it, as you were talking before. And again, then he asks this, nobody has light or lights a lamp to then just put it under a basket.
Right. Yeah. He makes a move here, and I think that's what you're getting to, where it's. The salt will always be salt, and whatever it does. Light, on the other hand, can be hidden away. It can be, hidden. Yeah, it can be diminished in that sense. But the best way to use light is actually to put it out in the open so that everybody can benefit from it.
It's the
right?
purpose of light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you light a lamp so that those dwelling in the house, as he says, get the light.
Yeah.
The light does its work.
Yeah. And this is a move he's making in the text itself, right? He calls them light, and then he says, nobody hides light. You don't do that. Instead, you make it known. And so in essence, he's telling his disciples, who you are now, who I am making you into, you need to, that's not a thing to be hidden.
Right.
That's something to shine forth. So, but how do they shine it forth, Paul?
They shine it forth by doing good works.
What?
Yes, indeed.
No.
By doing good works, right?
I thought we were Lutheran. We don't believe in good works, do we?
Right. And so they show forth, and they show, as he says, the glory of your Father who's in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That you walk, that people see your good works,
yeah,
and therefore they glorify your God
yeah.
because of that. When we're going back to the salt idea, I think this lines up beautifully with James, right?
Mm-hmm.
Faith without works is dead.
Yes,
he's basically saying because that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Faith without works is an unthing.
Yeah.
Like salt without saltiness.
Right.
This doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
Right.
Well, and James is the other problem is people use James. He's not talking about works. He's talking about works of faith.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, they're and so
they go together.
They go together. Yeah. It's not like because I have faith now I open the door for little old granny. It's because I have faith I declare Christ. It's because I have faith I pray. Because I have faith I. And these things are.
And so you get the salt. You can't have salt without saltiness. Moves it in like I like what you did with the second movement with light. You can diminish that. You can hide that away. He's like, but why would you?
Why would you?
Right? And in fact, when you let it shine out, this proclaims the glory of your Father.
Yeah, it doesn't even point to you,
it's
right?
Not about you,
it
right?
shows somebody else.
And so then we get into the second paragraph, starting in verse 17, and he makes this assertion, and it might come as a surprise in the context of Sermon on the Mount. Now, where it's going, this is going to be huge, right? That he's not here to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them, right? And then what is he calling for them to do? What is his?
Yeah. To some extent, he's calling them to fulfill the law in him as well. But it flows out of this who they are, who he's declared them to be, and then what he's told them to do.
Okay.
Right? So he's declared them to be all of these great things in the Beatitudes. He's told them that they are salt and light, but he hasn't yet told them to do anything. He's simply given them this line on good
is
works.
who you are.
Right? If you want to know where the good works are, you find them in the law and the prophets,
Yeah.
I think. I think would kind of be, if you're thinking through that,
Okay.
where you go. And even more than that, then, all of this doesn't negate that law that's been given. It doesn't, these realities of who you are now.
Right.
So again, going to James, faith without works is dead, right? That who you are now defines why you do these things. But in the context of kind of where you go with this, you could do a move that Paul does in Romans 8, right? This is the, since grace comes in all the more because of sin, then should we sin so that grace may abound?
Right,
By no
yeah.
means.
But, yeah.
And so I've called you all of these things. That does not negate
Right.
the realities of the law that need to be done.
Okay.
And so don't think that I've come to, and I hate to say this from a Lutheran standpoint, just give you grace, right? In that sense, don't think that I've just given you a free pass to do whatever you want to do. That the law of God is still a reality for your life. It still stands.
And in fact, in Christ, you are free to do them.
Yeah,
Because that's what light does and salt
that's right.
does.
It just obeys the laws of its creator.
Right.
So
Now, of course, not perfectly so, right? The
Right.
Saint and sinner struggle, and I think that's where this text, when we think about preaching it, this is where it becomes really rich, because you can make these statements here. And you can say, oh, okay, great, okay, this is who you are in Christ. You are salt. You are light. Let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. All that good stuff, right? You get Jesus then saying, look, and don't go changing it. Don't make the law less than what it is.
Right.
Don't take it and say, well, I'm going to twist this and make it easier so it's more accomplished, or that I'm going to teach other people that they don't have to worry about the law. Right? Don't do any of that.
Yeah.
That makes you least in the kingdom of heaven, he says. Rather, his assertion is that you need, your righteousness needs to be greater, more than the scribes and the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And in righteousness here, I think we need to make a distinction. I think we understand this as Lutherans, but we read it and for some reason we don't. And that is that righteousness is not piety. Jesus is not talking about piety here. When he's talking about righteousness, what he's talking about is your relationship with God.
Okay.
What makes you right with God, if
sure,
you will,
sure.
right? And so how close you are to them. And what he's saying is, them with all of their relationship that they think they have in their works and everything else that they do, you need to be better than that in order to get into the kingdom. You need to have a closer relationship with your God than what they have. So,
Right. And this is, again, preaching this here, this is where the rubber hits the road.
Right.
And the later part of the Sermon on the Mount is going to just do this in spades.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've heard it said, you shall not murder.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you.
What murder really is.
Yeah. You've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery.
Right.
And he explains it in greater detail. And that, when you get there, they're looking at scribes and Pharisees. They know them. They see what they do. These men are getting after it.
Yeah.
As far as
they are.
Their faith is. They don't take it lightly.
No.
They're not just showing up, at church on Sunday morning saying, "Hey, I got my gold star. I'm going on my way."
Yeah.
They're diligent. They're intentional.
In fact, they're even putting up what are called fences in Judaism so that they won't even get close.
Yeah.
So they won't even get near.
I'm not even going to say his name.
That's right.
Therefore, I'm not going to use it in vain.
That's right.
And so at this point, this is where the context becomes crucial, in that perhaps what's happening here is this is emptying you of yourself, like of anything you're going to stand on. We were joking before, you're like, this is where you need a hymn which directs you to cling to Christ.
Right.
Cling to Jesus. Because here what it is you get to verse 20 and you go, I can't do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm incapable. In fact, I'm poor in spirit.
Yeah.
And then that takes you right back to where we started week before, where Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. That you're blessed in him. You're poor in spirit, you're blessed in him. You're blessed in him makes you salt, makes you light.
Makes you light.
Let your light shine.
Makes you do good works.
Do good works.
That's right.
And then you all of a sudden you start going, but I can't do that. You're blessed in him, and it circles back to those Beatitudes.
Yeah, this is actually where Jesus gives us the answer to verse 20 when he starts this section in verse 17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them, to make them, to complete them.
Complete them.
Right? And so your righteousness needs to be, my righteousness isn't greater. Blessed are you.
Blessed are you.
Blessed are you because I have done that.
Right.
And now I have made my reality your reality.
Right.
And so this is one of those things where then as you go back through the Sermon on the Mount and you kind of continue that cycle back through, you find yourself when you get down to something like murder, do not, I tell you, if you've hated your brother.
Yeah.
Oh, well now in Christ, I've been given that heart of compassion so that I might not hate my brother, but I'll hate him a little less this time, right? This is the life of sanctification then.
Okay.
As we go back through those Beatitudes and as we allow Christ to give those realities to us again so that we can, in essence, fulfill and complete the law going down through, ultimately.
And so preaching this, I guess you would say, don't skimp on the law or the gospel here. Like the law needs to be biting.
Yeah.
It's real. And the gospel is free and true. And that this lays out a rhythm of the life of the Christian, right? This is what you will get, this kind of cycle of the life of a Christian, in which the members you're preaching to are caught up in.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, Jesus ends this section with, and he actually continues it on even harder. He ends that statement with law, verse 20, right? Unless your righteousness is greater than the scribes, you won't enter it. That's law. And the whole point of that law is to drive you back to the gospel of the very beginning. Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Right. That's good. So make sure you do that when you're preaching this text. It's great, rich text, and it just kind of launches us further into the Sermon on the Mount. But leave any comments, any thoughts below, and subscribe, tell your friends. Maybe we'll have more people next time. We don't need them.
We'll see subjunctively.
That's right. God bless your preaching.